Hey, it's Danielle with BigCommerce. In this video, we're going to talk a little bit about user permissions and user accounts in BigCommerce. It's really important that for anybody you have working on your site that you give them their own user account. There's a few reasons for this. One is just security. You want to make sure that not everyone's logging in the same account. And the reason for that is because you'll be able to track what people do in the store logs based on account. So if everyone's logging in through the same account, you're going to have no way of knowing who did what. The other thing is that BigCommerce has two-factor authentication. So every time well, not every time, but for a period of time, you'll stay logged in. But after that period of time, you'll need to get a code to your email or to your authenticator app that will verify who you are before you can complete the login process. So if everyone's using the same account, like let's say everyone's using the owner's account, each time they log in from a different computer, it's going to send the owner a code. They're going to have to forward it to them. It's just a nightmare. So just give everyone their own account. And what we're going to talk about today is how you can set the permissions for those accounts so that people only have access to the things that they need in the back end, and you don't have to worry about maybe a marketing person accidentally deleting a product because you're not going to give them access to products. You're only going to give them access to the things that they need. So let's look a little bit at the user accounts and the permissions. So one of the first questions I always get from people is, how do I add a user to my store? So to do that, you're going to come down here on the left and you're going to go to account settings. Even if you're not logged in as the store owner, you should still see users up here. As long as you have your account has access to set up new users, you'll see this users link here. So just go ahead and click on that. And then you're going to see your list of accounts. Usually it's just going to be you if you're the first person who's ever added an account, and your user role is going to be the owner. That means you have full access to everything in the control panel, and it means you have access to these links over here, which allow you to access your plan, change your payment method, view your billing invoices, things like that. If you are not logged in as the store owner, you're not going to see these links here. You'll only see users. So to create a new account, we just go ahead and click create a user account. And then we put the person's email in here at the top. If you are copying and pasting from somewhere else, make sure there's not an extra space at the end. If you do and you try to save, it's going to give you an error message. And I've had people come back to me and say, hey, it won't let me. It says it's an invalid email address. And typically it's because there's a space at the end. So right here, you're going to see there's a status. So if you've created an account for someone and later down the road you want to deactivate it, maybe you don't want to delete the account, but you just don't think they need access right now, you can always come in here and change it to inactive. So the account will still be in your store, but the person, when they try to log in, they're just going to get a message that says their account is inactive. You can change the preferred language if you want here. So if you come down here to the permissions area, you'll see there's a section for user roles. These are predefined sets of permissions. Generally, I don't use these because they don't have much meaning in the real world. I don't know how they were defined, but typically you're not going to have a sales staff or a sales manager. And the permissions that are grouped into those roles aren't necessarily what you're going to want to give people permission for anyway. The only exceptions to that would be store administrator. If you need to give someone access and you essentially want them to have all the same access as you do as the store owner, just without access to the billing information over here, you can just choose store administrator and it's going to check every box that's on here. For the other ones, you could check sales staff and then you could kind of go through and look. I mean, they've grouped these things here with different lists of permissions. Generally, what I find is you could start with this and then go through these other lists and see what other things people might need. Or you could just go ahead and go straight to custom, and then you can go through the lists and you can pick out which permissions you want to give people. One thing to keep in mind is some of these things overlap. So you could give someone the permission to create and edit pages, but if you don't give them permission to manage pages, they're actually not going to be able to even get to the section of the control panel where they could create or edit them. So keep in mind, if you know what you want the person to be able to have access to do, like, oh, it's a marketing agency, I want them to be able to maybe create pages, create blog posts, Give them all the permissions related to pages and blog posts. Otherwise, chances are they're going to be restricted in what they're going to be able to do, and they're not actually going to be able to complete whatever work they're trying to complete. And then as you scroll down here towards the bottom, you're going to see there are these high risk permissions. So sometimes if you're working with a third-party developer or a web designer, they may need access to the APIs to either tap into your store's data if they're maybe building you a custom app, or they're helping you integrate with a third-party service. They may need access to create API accounts. Or maybe they need permission to actually configure an app for you. So these would be to be able to launch and install and uninstall applications. You can give those permissions out depending on who the person is and whether or not they need them. And then down here, you're also going to see single-click apps. So most recent apps are going to be single-click, which means once you install them, they live inside your control panel. And if that's the case, then you can give individual users access to those apps. If you install an app and you don't see them here, that means they're not a single-click app, and unfortunately you won't be able to give someone access through BigCommerce to that app. So in that case, typically for those apps, you would have your own separate login where you would go log in at the app's website, and then you could just set up your other employees or staff members or marketers, whoever they might be, with access through that app's website. Down here at the bottom, you're going to see WebDAV. WebDAV is used to upload files directly to your store's server. So that could be anything from PDFs that maybe you want to attach to products, or a catalog that you want someone to be able to download from a About Us page, or it could be product images if you're going to be importing products in bulk through a CSV. And you want to import the images as well, you would need to drag those onto WebDAV first so that they'll import with the rest of the product information. So you can enable WebDAV for most people if you think that they might need it, or you can leave it unchecked, and worst case, if the person determines they need to use WebDAV, you can always edit their account and come in here and enable it for them. So as you can see, there's permissions for many things. I will say, just as a word of caution, there are certain things in the store that don't have a corresponding permission in any of these lists. There have been times where I've had clients who I asked for permission to their store. They came in, they manually checked off all of these things, and they had the user role set to custom, and there were certain things in the store that I just could not access. So it's been my experience that if you do want someone to have full access, the better thing to do is to just select the store administrator role. And I think that there are kind of some mystery hidden permissions behind the scenes that get enabled when someone has that role, even though they're not listed here in any of these lists. So just something to keep in mind. And then when you're done creating the account, you just go ahead and click Save. And so now you can see the list, including the new person that we just added here. And over here on the right, you'll see there's, under the three dots, the ability to edit it. This little check shows you that the account's active. And then if you ever wanted to delete them, you can come over here, check this box, and click Delete. And then in conjunction, just a real quick note, I mentioned the store logs earlier. If you ever do want to see what individual accounts are doing, you can come into the settings over here and go down here to the advanced and click on store logs. And then up here at the top, you can see the staff action log. And you're going to see if there were users who did anything specific. You can see the admin. Usually the admin means the store owner if it doesn't say their actual login. But you can see it shows that I logged in earlier. Now, the store logs don't capture every single thing you do, but you can filter by the individual users. And that'll show you what they've been up to in the store. It will capture things like adding products, changing products, applying a theme, processing orders, creating shipments. So it does show a lot. It just doesn't show everything. But again, just another good reason to have individual accounts for individual users, so that if you did need to track back a change, you could come into the store logs and be able to see which person actually used it. And if everybody's logged in as the store owner, they're all going to show as admin. and you'll have no way of knowing who did what. So that was a quick overview of user accounts and permissions in BigCommerce. I hope you found that helpful. If you did, please go ahead and click the like button below, and you can also subscribe to my channel. If you subscribe, you'll get notified when I release new videos in the future, and I am trying to make a priority to release more helpful content this year. And of course, if you ever need help with your store, whether you're launching a new business or migrating to BigCommerce, or you need help with theme design, you can always contact me through my website at ducksoupecommerce.com. And you'll also find a lot of helpful tips and advice there, including blog posts and some other resources. So